We have a great panel of industry experts in the field of real estate that are going to talk to you a little bit about what it means to be a real estate professional and some of the some life advice as we go through our talk today. So we have a panel of 4. I'm going to have each one of you introduce yourself, tell us your company and your role, and how you got into real estate in the first place. And Megan, I'll start with you.
Hey everyone, I'm Megan Walela. I'm the Development and Acquisitions Manager at Wisconsin Housing Preservation Corp. We're a nonprofit affordable housing owner and developer based in Madison. We own about 9,000 units across the state. We're in 57 of Wisconsin's 72 counties. And we're pretty large. We've got about 650 million in assets, and our annual operating revenue is about 100 million. So at WHPC, I'm working on our new acquisitions, new construction. My background is actually a little bit circuitous. I started in public health. My undergrad's in public health, and then I was working at a health policy think tank in DC for a couple of years. Worked in the global health space abroad before coming back to the US and doing my master's in urban planning in Boston. I was out in Boston for a couple of years working at another nonprofit affordable housing developer, but I grew up in Wisconsin and wanted to buy a home, so I left Boston since it's much more expensive, and have been at WHPC for about 3.5 years.
Hey there. Thank you, Mark, for having us. And UW-Whitewater, it's always good to be back here. And Finance Day is a great opportunity for us to tell you a little bit about what we know and for us to meet all of you. So we appreciate being here. I'm a UW-Whitewater grad, and that makes it even better to be back on campus. So thank you. I own and operate 2 companies in the real estate space. One is a traditional real estate brokerage, Exit Realty HGM. We're in most of South Central Wisconsin. We sell anywhere in the state, primarily residential real estate. We do work with a lot of investors and a small portion of commercial investors as well. And then we have Wisconsin property managers. We manage about 700 investment properties for owners from all over the country, sometimes out of the country, that look to invest primarily in South Central Wisconsin. So that's what I do. I'm a dad. I've got 3 kids. And thank you for being here.
Morning. Adam Shultz, managing broker, owner, Coldwell Banker Commercial. Sit in Janesville, Wisconsin. We primarily handle commercial transactions, vacant land, any bigger buildings you look around. That's the type of stuff that we work on day to day. We don't sell houses. Also licensed in Illinois, so dabble across the border as well. What led me to real estate, Mark's question. So when I was 13, I kind of owe all my jobs to my golf course job. When I was 13, I started at the golf course. I got to know a few guys. Went on, I worked at that golf course for 9 years on summers, coming back in college. Once I graduated, I went on to Associated Bank for 7 years. I managed the largest branch in Associated Bank. Same guys I saw at the golf course, I was talking to them there. And when you work at a bank, you can see everyone's bank account. So anyone who had a bank account that I was thinking I would want someday, they seemed to own buildings, and they started talking to me about development and their developers so in our area, and just recruited me over to the brokerage side of the house for them. So same guys I met when I was 13 years old, we're still partnered up today and own the brokerage with them. So that's me.
Very cool. Hi, my name is Tracy Johnson. I'm the president and CEO for the Commercial Association of Realtors Wisconsin. We just call ourselves CARW. It's an association of commercial real estate professionals, mostly focused in commercial real estate brokerage. So they buy and sell lease and facilitate transactions for commercial property, whether that's office space, an office building, industrial, retail, and then also multifamily. I do not have a background specifically in commercial real estate, but I've been with the organization for 10 years. My background is in public relations and association management. And this is like the perfect job for me because I get to talk to people. I get to help advocate for the industry. I get to work on policy for the industry. We worked on the Bucks Arena and that whole land sale and that development project. We also work with a lot of the programs for WIDA and affordable housing. With the realtors, we advocate for increasing housing supply. So we get to touch all different aspects of the industry. The thing that I love most about this industry and about working with commercial real estate professionals is that they are eternal optimists. They are always looking for opportunity. They always see the good and the opportunity for themselves to make a difference and solve problems that sometimes people don't even realize they have, whether it's for an individual, an investor, a company, or a community.
Well, solving problems is a great asset for any of you as you go out in the world, because if you can solve problems, you'll never starve. I can tell you that. You know, we have a diverse group of folks here and everybody has a different job. But maybe you could describe what excites you most about going to work every day. And I know you just covered a lot of that, Tracy, but Megan, if you could start.
Yeah, so working at a nonprofit organization is something that really motivates me. I'm really driven by mission. And in Wisconsin, if you look at the stats on how many people are struggling to afford high quality housing, it's pretty staggering. So for everyone who's at the extremely low income level, like 30% of area median income, if you take 100 households that qualify as extremely low income, there are only 34 affordable and available homes out there for them. So that means the remainder are spending way too much money on their housing. They're not able to afford other essentials. Maybe they're living in substandard housing. And the work that I'm doing every day is contributing to improving that gap. And so I've gotten to work on a lot of recent projects, even one less than a mile from here, Kettle Ridge on Tratt Street. It's a Section 8 HUD property that we put $7 million into the rehab of. It's 108 units, and going on site visits, meeting with the contractor, putting that deal together with our tax credit investor, getting on site and seeing how residents' apartments have been transformed with new kitchens and baths, new flooring, upgrades to the building as far as sustainability and efficiency. We put in a new photovoltaic solar system on the building, and it's a family property, didn't have even a playground. So I got to develop the scope for that project and determine how we were going to spend that $7 million. And the transformation from a pretty rundown place with a bad reputation to just a property that got a huge facelift because of my efforts and my team's efforts. It's really inspiring to see that. So that's what excites me about my work. There's a lot of stuff that's not fun too, but a lot of exciting things.
We're not going to cover the stuff that you don't like to do. We're trying to get you into this industry, but it's not just about the money, right? It's not, I mean, that's a very rewarding, and I think this is going to be echoed from the other panelists here, because there's opportunity to make a lot of money in real estate. I'm not going to lie to you. But what brings these people to work every day isn't just that. So, Brian.
I love that answer, Megan. You know, when we train our staff as they come into the business, we always say we use real estate as a vehicle to deliver our values of help, gratitude, mindset. But you have to wake up with why, as Simon Sinek says. For me, it used to be my kids and my community. So when I was flipping houses, being a real estate investor, you know, or getting my license as an agent, I would always, you know, get out of bed for my kids and to use real estate to improve our community, to connect with our community. And over time, now we have 60 staff, and you start signing paychecks. And all of a sudden, it's like, my mistakes are their mistakes, and that's not acceptable. So I get out of bed now for my kids, our people, and our community. So what excites me is the everyday craftsmanship of being an entrepreneur and understanding how to get off that treadmill a little bit of being in the business and working on our business, developing great leaders, connecting our great people to our communities to deliver those values that we hold dear. Because as Mark just said, and you heard in Megan's answer, if you get into anything for money, you'll get on a nice run, and then it's just gonna be over. You have to be there for a much bigger reason, as you heard in Megan's answer as well. So that's what gets me out of bed.
So what I like about my job every day, no 2 days are the same. You know, I wake up with, I'd like to list properties, I'd like to talk to owners of properties today, and that's usually the goal, but you know, you never know what's going to come your way. Sometimes you have a listing that's out there for way longer than you'd like in my world, and you finally get that call, somebody wants to see it later that day, you're there, they're talking about an offer with you, and suddenly you're redesigning and reshaping a building that's been sitting vacant for 4 years. Probably one of the best examples I have recently of something that I do that really it meant a lot to me. I used to live a couple miles from this property on the south side of Janesville. There's a 60,000 square foot office that Rock County used to occupy. Peak COVID, they moved to a new property, and they hired our firm to solve that problem. Took a while, you know, about a year later, we brought Quick Trip to the table, so I negotiated a deal with Quick Trip. They eventually closed 2 weeks ago. So took me 3 years to get paid on that deal, but they're gonna bring down a problematic looking property, build a new Quick Trip, provide a grocery option for the south side of Janesville, which is a pain point in Janesville. So hearing the citizens, you know, I see the Facebook comments, all these things, people calling for things. I understand there's community support behind some of the things I do, and then I go move those parts to hopefully get a paycheck someday. It's an interesting job.
The thing that I love about working with folks in commercial real estate is something that was mentioned earlier about the entrepreneurial spirit. The members that I work with are basically 100% commission. So if they don't deliver for their clients, if they don't find solutions, sometimes to problems that people don't even know exist, they don't get paid. So they're driven by mission, but also commission, which I think is a really interesting way to kind of look at this career path. The other thing that I would note, and I don't really know the demographics of those in the audience in terms of where your focus is or interest in real estate, but most of the members that are in our association didn't necessarily go to school for real estate. They went to school for business or finance or economic development or something else, and they kind of found real estate, or in some cases, real estate found them. I really applaud universities like Whitewater, Madison, others that have these programs and bring this industry and this profession to the forefront, because it really does matter and it can be very impactful. I love that story about you sharing about writing that paycheck. Think about the economic impact that you have as an employer and creating that environment for those people to do so much good in the world. I want to share one story that kind of touches on individual impact and also community impact. We were involved with a project, and the association gets involved on some of these larger economic development projects because they involve policy or helping make connections in different places where maybe an individual broker doesn't have that relationship. And that was with Fiserv. Fiserv was moving to downtown Milwaukee. They were trying to strike a deal where they were going to take over space of a vacant Boston store office space. I don't know if you've read about it in the news, but this space had been sitting empty for 10 years since Boston store left. It was not contributing to the tax base in a meaningful way. It was a dead, huge office building right in the middle of the city. And some of our members were hired by the firm to help them relocate. They established that downtown Milwaukee was where they wanted to be. They needed some help from the city. They needed some incentive. They met with the mayor. They met with folks on economic development. And the deal they struck was it had to do not only with the office building itself, but also mandating that people work in the office. And I know we're probably going to talk about working in the office, and we're huge advocates of being in the office because we're a face-to-face business. But they said, if you can bring your people to the office for 60% of the time, we will give you this incentive, because the impact of bringing people to a physical location, as it kind of spindles out into retail and restaurants and all the other economic impact and spend that they'll have, that's going to make a big difference. And that's such a huge win for our industry, for the individual members who are involved, and for the city and the community and other businesses who may not even realize it right now.
You covered a lot of ground, Tracy. I mean, first, raise your hand if you have a degree in real estate. None of them do. You're all fortunate that you have a real estate emphasis here at Whitewater, and you're going to be head and shoulders above your peers when you get out, because you'll have a lot more understanding. The other thing that she mentioned, relationships and being in the office, but that's building relationships. Real estate is all about relationships. And as you gain more relationships and networking, that's going to afford you more opportunities, which brings me to my next question is, we have a changing landscape, with interest rates and where we're at in the economy, and you all have a different perspective of real estate. And I'd like to maybe either talk about opportunities you see or a project that illustrates where opportunities might be in real estate. So if you wouldn't mind, Megan.
Yes, it's been an interesting few years in the world of real estate development. I'm thinking about WHPC's project on the east side of Madison. We're building 245 affordable apartments on a 6-acre site that used to be a vacant bakery. And when we started that deal in 2021, when we put the site under contract, we were looking at about a $63 million project with 4 sources of funding. And we closed last December, and our total development cost $83 million with 11 sources of funding. So with just some of the recent changes in interest rates, I think what I'm excited about is that the last couple of years have been difficult in the world of affordable housing development, and I think just real estate in general. And I think what we've seen from the Fed last week, we're going to get some improvements in that really difficult climate going ahead. But I'm excited with this project on the east side of Madison because 245 families and seniors will get to live in high quality affordable housing. And I think as far as opportunities in real estate, this is probably a slightly different angle, but I think there are a lot of opportunities to see more women and people of color in the industry. This is an industry that is dominated by certain people, and so it's nice to see more diversity coming into the field. I think there's also a lot of promising work with what the federal government has recently supported as far as investments in energy efficiency and sustainability. And the real estate sector is a huge contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. And so I think whether it's building design or other facets of real estate, that's another big opportunity to explore.
Great opportunities. I would preface all of this by saying a lot of people in our industry seem to focus a lot on, what the market is doing or what the interest rates are doing. And one thing I would just recommend to know and remember is that the market has no emotion. There's nothing that it feels. And so the beauty of being in real estate is that you can pivot to all sorts of different niches, little corners of the industry and succeed no matter what the market's doing. And also, like anything in life, people that are really good, the top 10%, you're gonna do well no matter what is happening in the market or what the interest rates. Three opportunities that I see: industry as a whole would be AI and any integrations into our entrepreneurial, business ventures, just our day-to-day operations. To how can technology beyond Zillow and that big website? We're looking at real innovators, real movers to change and disrupt the way we do our day-to-day. Keep in mind, I don't think that eliminates human beings. I think that just makes the humans behind the technology even more important. We will always, forever be on a talent search for human beings to run anything we do. In the residential world, I would say the affordable housing is massive. One niche of that, I know that Berkshire has invested heavily into this, but is cross-modular construction, cross-mod. You could look that up. That is a thing to help reduce construction costs for beautiful homes, not the traditional modular home or that kind of cross mod. That's something you'll want to look into. And then in the commercial space, and Adam is, much more. Tracy's much more focused on that. But Mark said problem solving. If you can solve problems, you'll never starve. You look around. What do you see as a problem that's obvious? Big empty buildings. And so, who can solve the problem of putting people into that or repurposing those big buildings? I think that's another thing on the horizon.
Yeah, so opportunities, I think of a national level. I'm really bullish on Wisconsin in general. I have no idea where you guys plan to go after school. I went to UW-Madison. I came right back home, graduated with 2 degrees, and didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up still, when I graduated. So I came back home, figured it out, led me to real estate. Last year, our company, our brokerage was up 30%. At our national conference, most of the other ones in our organization were down 20 to 30%. I didn't know what that said as far as if we were doing something right, but everyone else was down. I took it more as the interstate project that went on through, Madison, the 3 lanes all the way to Illinois down to O'Hare. In my world, big commercial buildings, there's a reason you see all those warehouses and things popping up along there. It's logistics, it's trucks moving things. That's how my brain works. I'm always thinking about that. So going by infrastructure, where that's where companies want to be, where people want to be. Madison as a whole just booming. It's always year after year. It's one of the top cities. So tons of opportunities in Madison. I'm not a big city guy, so I came back to the smaller town. But there's opportunities. There's buildings everywhere. So to Brian's point, that's what I used to do as a hobby, is drive around and see vacant buildings and wonder what they could be someday. And now that's literally my job, and I get paid for it, is re-envisioning it, calling somebody, saying you should do this with it, and then something happens and it comes together, and being a part of that. Only other thing I would say is learning about the construction industry as much as you can too. They kind of go hand in hand. I was lucky to join a development team that has a well-known contractor, and just learning all sides of a deal and what makes it work, and financing. I came from 7 years of banking. That's super helpful in my career too. So trying to be multifaceted, don't be too tunnel vision, really looking at the whole picture will help a lot.
It's interesting when you think about real estate, in what you mentioned is that it kind of is steady. And I mean, real estate is a long game. It's all about the long game. And it's also important to understand that for any business, your real estate investment, even for an individual, your real estate investment is either your number 1 or number 2 cost or expense on the balance sheet. So, this is an important industry to any business. The other thing that I would say about commercial real estate and even business just in general is it likes certainty. So whether that's the interest rate environment or the markets, as much certainty as can happen. I mean, that's why a lot of people in real estate pay a lot of attention to politics. So anyway, getting back to the interest rate environment, what we're seeing now, obviously, is people wanted that interest rate to come down, allows the investors to purchase more for their dollar. But what we've been seeing, especially in the cities, Milwaukee particularly, is a lot of these buildings trading way under the assessed value. There was just a property, it was City Center, assessed at something like 36 million, went for 17 million, and this was with 60% occupants, is 60% occupied. So that is a huge deal. And what we're dealing with right now along the lines of assessments is there's probably eight of the largest office property owners that are contesting their property assessments. So this is a big deal, and it'll be interesting to see how they refinance and if they're even able to refinance in this environment. One particular project that you've probably seen in the headlines is 100 East. That is a vacated office building right at Main and Main in Milwaukee. It's a 30-story office building. It was about 17% occupied. Our members got involved with the investor and the investment team trying to get people out of that building so they could redevelop that building into housing. Because just as was mentioned earlier, we have a huge housing shortage, not just affordable housing, but housing in general, whether it's single family homes or apartments, because the financing just isn't working right now. So that project is going to be one to watch. They've tried to get historic tax credits. They've tried some other financing tools, and they're struggling to make it work. A lot of that's attributed to the fact that cost of construction is so high.
There's that solving problems again. Solve that problem, you make a lot of money. One thing I want to echo, I don't know if Brian or Adam, I'm super bullish. I run on my own company. I am super bullish on Wisconsin. We have a lot of outside money from the coast that are coming here because they like the labor force here. We have a relatively stable economy. Madison in particular is super strong. So I will echo that. Last question I'm going to ask is, could you give our students any advice as to when they're looking for jobs or when they actually get a job, what you would like to see as a future employer?
So as you're looking through the job market, and I'm somebody that has hired, we've run internship programs. I've hired several UW-Whitewater grads that are still with us and have stayed with us, and Mark has met them and watched them grow from young to people that control a lot of the day-to-day of what I do. So we have, like I said, 60 people, talk to people weekly, sometimes 2-3 times a week of just surveying about talent, listening to anybody that could connect me to talent, because a lot of things that I do as a business owner, I don't really know I don't really have an end game until sometimes you're standing in it, and then you realize what's happening, and that, okay, this is a person, maybe we need to bring in. I would say things that stand out to me, and there's no real list here, right? This isn't tactical, but I was just talking out in the lobby with Mo, and he was talking about running, and I'm a runner. So my thing here is like, have passion and purpose about something. Walk in our office. He could talk to you for 12 hours straight without taking a breath about pickleball. Like, okay, I like pickleball, not that much. But you know what? It's fun to listen to people that have passion and purpose about just stuff in life, right? Cal is a big NBA guy or whatever. It doesn't matter what you're into, but have passion, allow yourself to have passion and purpose. It comes through. You're an interesting person. It doesn't matter what it is. Strategically, I would tell you to go meet and network. And you hear that like, oh, network. I mean, really, not just show up at events. That's good. Show up at investor nights, show up at meetups, all this kind of stuff. Show up at the real estate club, whatever that is. But who can you meet right now? Do you know how many leaders of organizations, nonprofits, you just survey your Instagram or Twitter account or whatever, and you're like, those are interesting people. I follow them for a reason. They lead some big corporation in Madison, or they lead some big development thing like that. 100% of those people that you would call and reach out to would have a cup of coffee with you. You don't want anything from them. You just want to, you're curious about who they are. And you say, well, what do I say when I show up? Just be human. Just show up and have a conversation. Ask them questions about what they do, how they got there, do they have any, and then stay in touch. When you get home, write them a handwritten thank you note. You ever heard of that? It's a pen. It's like a piece of paper. You got to put the stamp. You got to go get a stamp. Somebody can teach. Mark can teach you about a stamp. You got to find their actual address, which is a real pain in the butt, right? That's hard to do. Take the 20 minutes, handwrite. Thank you so much for the cup of coffee. I learned this. I really look forward to keeping in touch with you. A month later, set a reminder. Give them a call. Hey, I just wanted to touch base. I've been thinking a lot about that book you recommended. I actually read it, and here's what I learned. Any chance we get to grab another cup of coffee? And you do that twice a week for a year. That's 104 people, 104 phone calls. I mean, you're going to get a job. I promise you. So that would be a tactical thing that I talk to my kids about and I would tell you about.
Brian, I appreciate you saying that is really good advice. And hopefully if you're in my class, I also echo those same things because it is important.
I'm telling you, we use Indeed, and I get hit up, like yesterday I got a call from a guy that's from Wisconsin. He started a new tech startup that sort of rivals Indeed, and they do, all this video interface, and they take care of the hiring for all this kind of stuff. If we post a job Indeed, I guarantee you it's just like so many unqualified, uninterested things to look at. And we hire almost zero people we find at Indeed. Where do we get them? Our sphere. I email a guy like Mark and then 50 other people that I know, like, here. Hey, Tracy, met you at the UW thing. We're looking for an admin. Here's the seat description. Do you know anybody or could you connect with it? That's where we get everybody. And you know what? You're going to be the people in the cup of coffee with the handwritten note, and you call them a month later, and it's going to be like, yep, that person.
Tracy, you want to say something?
Yeah, I love that because everything I do is through a contact, a personal contact. It's how I got this job. It's how I got my last job. It's how I found my house. I mean, every single thing is like that. But building on what you said about the handwritten note, it's that differentiation. What differentiates you? And just remember that and think about that. What makes you unique so you can have that interesting conversation. I play the violin. Who wants to have a conversation about that? Or if you say that, I mean, people will ask that next question. So I think that's such an interesting and important thing to also remember is how do you differentiate yourself? The other thing is to say yes to opportunities. As I'm going to build on kind of what you said about more women in the industry, as a woman CEO of a commercial association of realtors, 85% of my members are men. It just is the nature of the business. So I have an opportunity to reach out to women and say, will you sit on this market update panel? Will you participate in this panel discussion? Will you do this or that? I get turned down a lot, but I'm going to keep asking. And, you gotta say yes to those opportunities, man, woman, whatever, say yes to those opportunities because that opportunity is going to lead to the next one. On that vein, come to the IREM and CAR-W student event on the 15th because there are going to be 100 students from 5 different universities who are interested in commercial real estate. Mark is going to be speaking on one of our roundtables. Josh Jeffers is going to be speaking. He's the great developer in Milwaukee who did the Milwaukee Athletic Club and a bunch of other projects around the state. Third thing, keep your LinkedIn updated. Keep it clean and be professional. That stands out. To somebody like me, I notice when students like my stuff, interact, and when you build your network through LinkedIn, that is the most important social media network. And I would encourage you to be active, be current, and be clean on your social media. And then building on what Mark said about books to read, I want to recommend one that's my favorite. It's called Execution. It's about getting things done. And just look it up. Trust me. Read the little synopsis, and I think that'll interest you, and you'll want to read more.
Well, did you want to say anything? I think we should open up for questions now. If anybody has any questions, all right, Ariel, you go ahead.
Okay. As someone who's been in Janesville way too long, like with my main priority is to move out of state, and I found when I'm looking at job descriptions and stuff, a lot of them say out of state applications will get ignored. Do you have any advice for someone who doesn't have connections in other states and just really wants to move post graduation?
I'd echo Brian's comments about reaching out to people and trying to connect and ask them for coffee. I think that's going to really boost your chances. But now is the time to do something bolder and experiment a little bit. If you want to get out of Janesville, make it happen. I think those coffee conversations plus that thorough follow-up and the differentiation like Tracy was mentioning, that's going to help you. But yeah, good luck. It can be tough.
Can I add on to that? Maybe there's an opportunity locally that could help open the door with because I mean you're part of Coldwell. Coldwell has to have a Denver office. I mean, is there an opportunity to connect with somebody locally that could help open that door to the other market? Sorry, did I set you
no,
up?
I agree. There's people you know, or have you know somebody that knows somebody right here in Janesville, in Whitewater, that whatever city you're looking at, they can make a connection for you. But you got to take the execution book. It's the action. You got to take so much action toward that leap that it'll happen.
Hi, my name's Dylan. I work for Northwestern Mutual Real Estate. One thing I saw with the portfolio is just the changes that's been going on in the past 5 years. You have office valuations down 70-80% in some markets. With multifamily, the huge boom, with everyone, obviously needing a place to live. Where do you see the next 3 to 5 years with portfolio allocation shifting? What asset classes are you really bullish on in the near coming future?
So, it depends where you're looking. I'm of the thought camp we are, bringing a lot of business home. So I focus a lot on industrial real estate. I think that's going to continue as you hear the buzzwords AI, data centers. Those do come in phases. I don't know if you guys watch the stock market too. I tend to pay attention to it because when the stock market's going up, it seems like the real estate investment world's going up. When it's red, headed straight down, your phone calls will dry up. And so in my world, they're tied together. So I pay attention to that. But industrial real estate, the nice thing I wish somebody would have told me about when I was your age, nobody tells you about like bumps and increases in leases and things like that. When you get a tenant, normally they're signing 5, 7, 10-year deals. They're paying by the square foot. These aren't things that they taught when I went to school. I learned about it all on the job 5 years ago. The people that have, and it's time in business. Somebody said that up here today. So just time. You have nothing but time on your side. You're at the age you're at. Buy a property. Start with a duplex if that's what you can afford. Live in half. Rinse and repeat. The people that are really successful in this business, that's what they did. I bought my first house when I was 23 and tried to do the same thing, and I just ended up in the brokerage world. But I would say definitely industrial real estate, multifamily. There's a need for housing. You're hearing about it. It's a presidential campaign. They're talking about it in those type of things too. You're going to see those industries. Office, everything has its time. It's been on the decline for 5 years, maybe give it 5 more years, but we've been selling 100,000 square foot offices recently at very much reduced valuation. So people are figuring out what to do with them, and that's the point, problem solving. So
It's always going to be multifamily. Right now, we're seeing a lot of apartments come online. You're seeing rents go down. The problem is, and if you listen to Lawrence Yoon, he's the economist for the National Association of Realtors, he's suggesting that we just don't have enough starts, not only in single family housing, but in multifamily as well, because it's been difficult to get the cash. And so within the next 18 to 24 months, we're going to be looking at too few units once again. And so what is that going to do to rents, and what is that going to do to the portfolios? So multifamily is like the darling of commercial real estate. I also think it's interesting. We got what, $4 trillion in office debt coming due in the next couple years. So are all those going to go back to the bank? Milwaukee, Wisconsin is very fortunate. Our rents have held steady, and our vacancies have held steady because, kind of like Mark mentioned, we're not the coasts, and so we don't have the violent swings. That's why investors flock to the Midwest, is because it's much more stable. We're behind a little bit, and we're much more stable. A lot of the office owners that I talk to suggest that we've already realized the bottom of the market there, so we have nowhere to go but up. So also pay attention to retail. Retail, we haven't had any new construction in years. So all of those values are increasing. Landlords hold all the power right now. And so that, I think, leaves a lot of opportunity for potential development in the future.
One thing I'll add to all that is real estate is an imperfect market, and you can make money in any asset class, in any market, if you know what you're doing. So you can't do it at scale, $100 million, but you can do it in smaller tranches. One last question. Anybody?
Yeah, so November of 2021, I sold a $12 million building. It was a 6 cap. It was the highest dollar value I've done, and best cap rate that I've had. In today's market, we're seeing savvy investors. They want to pay a 10 cap. The people I work with, they're 10 cap buyers and 6 cap sellers. That's the goal. Reality is, if you're doing a deal in the 7 to 8 cap range on bigger industrial stuff around here, I think that's what the market's bearing mostly. So yeah, 6 was about the best we saw back in 2021 when those interest rates went up. Those points just, they add a little bit to the cap rate, and the beautiful thing is people have cash, so there's still a lot of cash out there, and they keep things headed in the right direction. But to answer your question, locally here, this area, 7 to 8 cap is where I see a lot of things falling.
And I would echo that. Have done a lot of deals in that time period where it's about a 300 basis point difference from then to now. But just, we started higher. That's all. If we have no other questions, I want to thank the panel. Let's give them a round of applause. We do have some time for networking, so come on. If you're listening to Brian at all, you might want to come down and talk to everybody and get some contact information, and just, get a little more personal about what they do. And if you have questions about real estate, you can talk to any of our panel. They're all really good people. I know them well. So come on down. Thank you for taking the time, and look forward to seeing you in class. Oh, and October 15th, we do have the Real Estate Club has, we're going to be out in Milwaukee with 150 other students and a bunch of really high-end industry experts to talk about the state of the industry. It's going to be a phenomenal event, and we'll be sending out details here. Well, Chase will be shortly.